Hello, and welcome. Let's get this set up there. There we go. Welcome. I am Vaugan. I do tutorial videos largely for Udon and stuff like that. And I also do standalone Unity development as my primary work. Though I think a lot of people here have heard that spiel already. And a while back, I guess we can just jump right in. A while back, we were working on a updated version of a inventory system I was working on, and it needs to be fleshed out a little bit more to actually properly get there. So I'm doing a little bit of finagling here to get some stuff set up. Unfortunately, the primary set of songs that I was using on YouTube for listening to stuff has vanished on me, likely due to some kind of copyright takedown. But yes, we got some Donkey Kong in here. It's hypothetically set to shuffle, but this is 3 Donkey Kong songs in a row, so we'll see. Coming with the aquatic ambience, yes. Let's see. So, a few other things figured out here. Okay. Let me double check that this works. There we go. I've added Clip Studio Paint as one of the things that I can swap between, largely for the purposes of just drawing out an idea that I have. Nope, I need you to come back. There we go. All right, yeah, so we're gonna have to change up how we've got the system working here. So previously, it's been a few weeks since we actually worked on this, but the general idea for this system was that a player, when they spawn in, will have a player object. That player object has a pool of, let's say, 20 empty objects that can become any prop. Now, this does work quite well, except for one problem. And that problem is that you can't hand items to other players. If you have an item and someone else wants to use it and you want to give it to them, if it's part of a player object, they can never become the owner of that object. Excuse me. Or of any child objects that are also synced as part of that player object. There's a bunch of reasons for that, and I think it's in the long term good. But for this specific implementation, it means that we need to find a different setup. Now, I've gone through the process with a few different people as to how we're going to properly handle this. And I think the general idea is this. So there's going to be one massive pool of objects that everyone takes items from. But players can only have up to, let's say, 10 or 20 items that they can actually take from that pool. In order to enforce that, when you join in a world, you will get allocated all of the objects in that pool that are going to be yours. So they'll just immediately get assigned to you as the ones that you own, and you locally will be told, yes, these are the objects that I can control, I can do things with, and I can work from there. You never need to request ownership of an object because you are just given 10 or 20 objects when you join the scene. That should cut out any kind of race conditions for trying to take ownership of something, but also lets you hand things around. Oh crap. Okay, yeah. So strictly ownership isn't something that will properly represent whether or not you can assign those things, because you can hand things to other people. So if we want to actually properly handle that that assignation, I guess when you join the world, you get told the IDs that you can use, and you pull from those IDs. Okay, I think that works. And then just whenever you want, when you force yourself to be the owner, because, well, honestly, I don't think it... Actually, Because you want to be able to spawn and remove an object, but also let other people own it. So I think forcing ownership on spawn and on item removal makes sense. Yeah, okay. I think I can work with that. But before we do that, I'm slightly changing how we are handling data objects for the actual props that you are spawning. So previously, I was doing it in two ways. One, I had the first way is, okay, we were doing two things at once is what I meant. The first thing is that we had a physical object. This is the prop that gets instantiated. It's just an empty game object with a mesh and some stuff, but could have lights and things like that, and that all just gets instantiated correctly. Then there's a scriptable object, which is just these files here, that have all the data on them for what they do. The problem is, this now meant that I had an object probably in the scene, maybe just a prefab, and a scriptable object, and that needs to go on the item library helper here to assign everything together. What this meant in practice is that while that was, it wasn't super annoying, but it was less than ideal, what this actually meant happened is you could change the settings for the pickup collider on it, but you would have no idea what that actually looks like. Whereas now, if we have that as part of the object and just have it all as one, you can actually just set the thing here and get a preview for what that is going to look like. Now, the preview isn't done. I haven't set up the capsule collider preview yet because Unity doesn't just have a gizmos.draw capsule. So it'll be a little bit of finagling to get that done. But also not really the thing that we're racing for right now. And to be fair, sphere and box collider will get us most of the way that we want. And to be fair, again, capsule colliders are implemented. You just don't have a preview of what it looks like right now. And this collider visualization here is just for interacting. Like the actual physics for this can be a box collider, it can be a mesh collider, it can fall around and do stuff. But the ability to pick up this item is going to be whatever this preview is going to be. It's water. Alright, so this is being done in two different things right now. The first is the item prop here, and this is the actual thing that will get told, hey, we used pickup, we used drop, we used pickup, use down, and those kind of different events when you're actually interacting with the object. However, to store all of its data as like a preset, we have a item descriptor script as well, which is basically line for line a copy paste of the asset description, the item asset, and I've adjusted a few settings. Let me know if the music is too high, too low, perfect. But I will keep talking. So if you can't hear me, just let me know. But for the most part, moving it onto a single object here is going to remove a lot of steps, especially for the end user. While I like using scriptable objects, I don't think they're the right fit for this thing. I think having these is dedicated. Time to time? Okay. Which one is it? I think it's this one. Okay. I moved it from -24 to -30, so it's going to be much quieter. I I've moved it back up because I don't think it needed to be that quiet. All right, so that works. Okay, perfect. So with that, we need to start fiddling with stuff to get it all set up. So we don't want these scriptable objects anymore. So I'll actually just go to item data asset here, and we can go ahead and honestly just delete it. Worst case scenario, I do have this on GitHub, so it will actually just work. Item traits. So item traits. Wait, what broke? What broke and why doesn't my programming IDE? Okay. Oh, item trait. Yeah, okay. That needs to just go. There we go. Public struct item trait. String name. Public string value. There we go. This is essentially just a wrapper for a key value pair, but we're doing it in a list that can be serialized. I also ended up making a GUID string attribute, which allows me to... Oh, hold on. Where is this complaining? Oh, right, yeah, so this system used the assets and did that. I'm just going to comment that out for now. We are going to come back to it, so we don't want to delete it. But anyway, the GUID string, we can actually go over to, once it loads here. There we go. We can go to this object here, and you see it has a GUID. So this is just a string field because GUID fields don't serialize. But my attribute gives you the new button. So you can just keep pressing this button to, let me move my head, make a new GUID. This is the greatest angle. I'm actually slouched way further down to my chair than you see. There we go. Yeah, this allows you to duplicate an object, change a bunch of stuff, and then not have to like manually type in a new GUID. It just gives you a button that... Oh, excuse me, I got hiccups. It just gives you a button that lets you create a new ID for it. With that, let's go back here because these are the changes we need to make. So item library helper, this now needs to turn into, instead of item data assets, these need to be item descriptors. Oh, right, so the prefab itself doesn't exist anymore because it is the game object. So item.game object? Wait, what is the prefab? The prefab is a reference to the item prop. Right. Oh, that needs to be title, not name. There we go. And with that, all the other parts are just lined up because they're exactly the same. Alright, so if we go back to the item library, we have an empty thing here, and I can lock this inspector, drag and drop my items that all have that script on them, and bang, they're all in here. So these are all item types now that can be instantiated correctly. And one of the advantage, honestly, it's kind of a little bit of a cheat here for what I'm doing. But let me unlock that. Item descriptor here, this is not an udon behavior. This is a mono behavior, which means it's not actually going to exist at runtime. So we can actually just go ahead and destroy them. Because if we don't destroy them, it'll be fine. You'll just get a warning log whenever you join the scene or that VR chat world that, hey, this script doesn't exist. But if you have like 500 of them, you'll get that log 500 times. So let's go ahead and just destroy it as we're looping through this. All right, so let's look at this to make sure everything lines up correctly. So we can go in, hit play. Now these should all be populated. Okay, we have 8 things populated in here. We have all the different item IDs. None of them have titles because I haven't said anything. Descriptions, icons. But the prefabs are correct, and those are pointing at the different things in the scene. This should also work perfectly fine with actual assets, which is what it's going to... that's what the plan is to use in the long run. So, item library, inventory system. Yes, yes. Welcome, welcome. The old inventory system works really great if you just want to put some props from your VR chat world into an imaginary box. However, a lot of people want to use it for game worlds that they're working on, and it just isn't quite adequate for it. So we're building out a system that is actually capable of doing that. All right, build item okay, so this is our dictionary system. All of the data you see here, this is all just stuff that's used to get into VR chat. This is essentially the tunnel of data that we use. When we actually run everything, it gets converted into this dictionary here with item data dictionaries inside of it. So we never actually use this data ever again after we run start. That's just to get everything into these data structures that we're using. Okay, yeah. So this is me working on that. All right, so let's go ahead and start actually implementing the new system for spawning things instead of relying on individual player objects. So player inventories. Right now, this just has a bunch of child things. So let's duplicate this and call it world inventory. Inventory? World item pool. Sure. There we go. We can get rid of player object. We get rid of player inventory, but we'll pick a new script called world item pool. Put our namespaces around this. Drop start. And let's give this behavior sync mode. Let's go with manual because this will have a bit of synced info for it. Actually, no. This won't need any synced data because it doesn't care about items being active or not. It's just going to break everything out into individual pools of objects. Will there be persistence or something like that? Yes. So the primary issue with people trying to use the current inventory systems for VR chat game worlds is that it, by design, cannot support persistence. The primary issue there is that it's just a wrapper for objects that already exist in your scene. So if I have like the TV remote and it controls the video player, and I put that into my inventory and I leave, well, one, you don't want that to just get rid of the controller for everyone else. But two, if I come back into that world and someone in that world has already taken the TV remote and put it in their inventory, my inventory doesn't have that item anymore. It's just gone because somebody else has it. I don't have control over whether or not that item is in my inventory. So since objects like that just kind of exist as objects in the scene already, it can't really support that kind of inventory system. Well, that kind of persistence, which is one of the main reasons why we're building out this one, where everything is data being represented in proxy items, and it gets complicated quickly, and that's why it's taking forever for me to actually do it. But soon enough, we're working on it today. Well, let's get ahead and kick off to this. So here's the object sync. So this is a item proxy. We actually don't want this as a child object right now. We want a game object to instantiate. Okay, we have player inventory. There we go. No, we need world item pool. There we go. Gonna head out for a nap a bit. See you all next one. Yeah, no worries. If I remember right, it's not exactly the earliest when I'm streaming for you, so feel free to go get some rest. Alright, come on, Ryder. Give me the highlights. Give me the correction. There we go. Perfect. So we need a few things here. So we'll have a public int of player pool size equals 20, and a public int of max player count. And just set this to be 100. Sure. This doesn't really need to be publicly accessible, so let's do a private there. Give it the serialized field. Flap an underscore. Lowercase m, lowercase p. That should be accessible. Yeah, okay, so let's double check this. So we'll do a public static void process scene. We'll do post process scene at callback of -10. And that's going to have to be under an if Unity editor and not compiler udon sharp. Those are editor features. Got to put there. So let's find the world item pool. Pool equals find object type for item pool. If no pool, return. Let me just double check something here. So we got int thing equals pool dot export. Okay, yeah, that is accessible here. So we need to instantiate a bunch of stuff and set up a bunch of things. So let's go ahead and give us the serialized field for the private item instance proxy. Yeah, okay. Instance prefab. Then we will need an array of this that's instantiated. And I think having a jagged array of that will make the most sense. And then players are just given a reference to which index in the jagged array is their props. So let's do Odin serialize for a private item instance proxy jagged array instance pools. So we'll do for max player, sorry, pool max player count. X, and for Y is pool dot player pool size. Let's go ahead and immediately initialize that for pool dot instance pools equals new of size pool dot max player count. Oops. Then we want, instead of getting it, I'll just cache these here. Int max player count, pool.max player count, and int player pool size is pool.player pool size. So otherwise we'll be getting them a few times. Then in here, we'll immediately set pool.instance pools x to, not I, x to equals a new array of length player pool size. Then in here, we will do item instant, if I can spell it all, item instance proxy equals new, nope, we want instantiate from pool.prefab childed to pool.transform. Proxy.name equals instance y. Let's do that. Instance xy. Then we want pool.instance pools xy to equal proxy. We should probably cache the prefab as well, since we're going to be using it a lot. And transform parent equals pool transform and pop there. Alright, so now with this setup, we'll go ahead and assign the prefab for it. Actually, we should make sure that this prefab is real. If prefab return exclamation point. Because if this prefab isn't real, it'll error here when we try to instantiate it. And if any errors occur during post-process scene, oops, like when you have the post-processing attribute, it stops the build process. So it won't even let you go into play mode. I don't know why these are missing references now. Oh, right. I'm an idiot. Because we're not actually using player inventory anymore. So let's go to prefabs, item instance proxy. Cube and sphere, you go in the prefabs for demo, not in the system prefabs. So I'll pop that there. Max player count 100, player pool size 20. So if I hit play and we go into play mode, we should now have a very big array. All right, instance pools 100. Each one has 20. All right. This is an incredibly laggy inspector. Okay, good to know. All right. Cool. Which means that is working. Yeah, okay. We do in fact have a bajillion items here. I don't know how many there is. Mentions, welcome. Hopefully I didn't accidentally ping you this week, and intentionally ping you with the actual normal ping. This is I think for testing, I'm going to drop these numbers so that the inspector is less cranky with me. Let's pretend it's 20 players with 10 items each. Not this time. Wonderful. Okay, that puts me in play mode a lot faster and doesn't have nearly the performance tank. Because it's just 20 times 10 instead of 100 times 20, which is a very big inspector. These items, I think having them be on, yeah, I think we should probably leave these on since they're synced objects. And enabling slash disabling synced objects can get a bit finicky in VR chat. Or just like doesn't really do the thing that you want it to. Okay, well in that case, let's leave play mode. These inventories here we will no longer need because these are the individual player objects. However, we still need player objects because oh crap, do we need player objects? So let's think through this. If we're going to be making a request, or wait, no, we don't even need to make external requests. We just already know the items that can be assigned to us. We need something locally that tells us that interfaces with the objects when we're trying to spawn them. I don't think we need a player object anymore. Like, we're going to have player inventory as like a local thing, but I don't think there's any reason to sync the state of the objects that you have in your inventory. I think the only things that need to be synced are the changes that are made to the actual objects in the scene. If that makes sense. So let's look at this. Player inventory. Add item, remove item. I think a lot of this is just going to get converted over to the world item pool. Well, no, because I don't want the world item pool to be your inventory item storage. But we will still get and return items from it. Excuse me. Alright, so item instances, these are the actual thing that sit in the scene and get toggled on and off. The only reason we have a proxy at all for this is because the proxy uses a VRC object sync component, which would force continuous sync, and I don't want to force continuous sync on the thing that has actual data on it. Otherwise, that would be a lot of syncing. Actually, wait, no, we can absolutely disable these objects. That will work perfectly fine. That's what the live system uses. So let's go to our instantiation here. New proxy.gameObject set active false. Ooh, actually, if the active state of those game objects matters, then we do need something to communicate that. Okay. Yeah, because realistically, we want to cut down on networking as much as possible, so if a object is returned to the inventory, I don't want there to be a loose object sync lying around. Like, realistically, players are probably going to spawn 1, 2, 3 items each, with 10 or 20 being their max count, and most players probably won't even have an item spawned. So they're not going. The entire pool has no need to stay active at all times. So we do need to be able to disable the ones that are unneeded. So let's go ahead and continue using the player inventories. We just won't need these anymore. Player inventory, this will have a manual sync on it because this bool array will be synced. Put on synced, there we go. Then items will be assigned not here in the inspector, but assigned on start for that. Oh wait, okay, so we're actually going to have to figure out which set inside of the which of these pools gets assigned to the player. And we can't just pick the position inside of the player pool. No, inside of the current list of players in the scene, because if the 4th player leaves, the 5th player is now the 4th player. And we don't want to suddenly have to reinstantiate all of their objects when we do that. So we need an actual way to declare that ownership. So let's have an array. So serialized field for private int array. Pool assignment IDs. And we'll just do pool assignment IDs equals new of max player count. And since player IDs start at 1 instead of 0, we don't actually need to loop through and manually assign all of these to -1. But let's see here. When a player joins, this needs to get assigned. All right, so this will be manual synced. Pool assignment IDs will be set to synced. This up here. Hide this. So on player joined, if networking is owner, game object, return, and flip it. So when a player joins, we need to assign that pool. So pool assignment IDs. Okay, so we'll find the first index of an available one. So int index equals array index of pool assignment IDs 0. If index is not equal, if index equals -1, we've broken something. Debug log. More pools have been requested than are available. Log warning that. So now that we know it works, let's go ahead and set pool assignment IDs index equal player dot player ID. Request serialization. That will sync out for everyone. And let's do a public bool has assigned pool. This will be return array dot index of. Oh, do we have array dot contains? Array dot exists. Oh no, that's not going to be exposed. We don't have predicates in Udon. Okay, so array dot index of. We'll do pool assignment IDs. Pass that networking dot local player dot player ID. It's not equal -1. And I'm gonna put this up. Ooh. I'm gonna put this up here with the variables. I usually put these getters near the top. But yeah. That way we can make sure for a fact that the local player is assigned into this before we start trying to pull things from the pool. So once the player has an assigned pool, how are we going to work with that? Realistically, we shouldn't have to do anything immediately. But yeah, okay. We won't have to work with this at all until we start having to instantiate things. Where's my example right now? So demo spawn item. Okay. Demo spawn item. Right now, it looks at the player inventory. Okay, so player inventory. Swap that over here. So this tries to spawn with the item ID from the library. So this adds an item to the inventory and then spawns it. And just double check. Stackable tags. Okay, item data, and then we have item instance data, which is the thing that actually records data for the instance information when it was spawned. Okay. Alright. So let's go to add item. So close that there. Using items active. Items. Instance data. Where are we actually? Spawn prefab, clear data, loads that in. When is this interacting with the proxy? Because this seems to just be interacting with the item instance. Spawn prefab. Immediately found a tiny little tangent for a thing I needed to fiddle with. However, let's figure out how this is going to work. When we try to spawn an object, we added our item into this, check whether or not it's stackable. When we try to spawn an item, we pull from the items array. Do we? Wait. Yeah, it's been so long since I've fiddled with this. Stacked items, items active, item instance, load data. Am I never interacting with the proxy? I feel like load data should do that. What's handling making this object on or off? Did I just not do that? It's not. And I use active.length. I guess I just never enabled or disabled those objects in this system. That feels incredibly silly. Why do I have this set for a implicit operator for this? Is that ever used? No. That's not what this should be used for. Yeah, so item instance is the actual thing. well, item instance proxy is the actual thing that's going to be doing everything. Item instance is just a networking wrapper for the data that needs to be on a different object. So these need to be renamed. Oops, yeah, okay. I need to do item instance network data. And this is the item instance. Item instance network data, item instance. There we go. Because we can't call it item instance data, because that's the data dictionary title here. Which I probably could just call instance data. That might be the smarter option. Escape to exit that. Alright, items active. So this is going to I don't actually care about interfacing with the data here. I want to interface with it directly on the thing that was the proxy, but is now the actual item instance. This will be let's do public void load item data. And public void clear item data. Which previously this was called under release, so clear item data. Most of these will be wrappers because actually I don't think they should be wrappers. I think it should be let's check here. So this is the thing that handles the syncing. On deserialization, this will need a reference back to the actual item instance. So serialize field instance, and that will have to tell it to rebuild the item. Public void rebuild item. Yeah, so a lot of this needs to be moved onto the root thing. So let's go ahead. Let's see, you can grab this as well. Loaded data, quest serialization on deserialization. And this needs to be here in rebuild item. And here we need to cache the data for that. So we'll do item data will equal our instance data dot loaded data. Load data, yep. Rebuild item, and if data equals null, turn, probably put something here. This is basically just how we're going to handle clearing the item now. Clear item data is just going to tell instance data dot load data null. So this will put in a null thing into its loaded data. When this is run, when the network data is properly loaded in, it tells our instance to actually rebuild the item. When it does so, it checks to see whether or not it's null. So we can go ahead and pickup.pickupable is false. Okay. Yeah, that should be the whole wrapper for the data that we need here. We do have to fix a bunch of things in our inspectors now. Right. We're actually getting pretty far along. We're 1 hour in, so I'm actually going to go take a quick bathroom break, and I'll leave you to enjoy some music here. We'll be right back. I am back. All right, let's go and oh crap, what's in compile? Oh, I just haven't fixed this yet. Let's give it the old comment out the whole thing while I go fix a different thing. Except for that breaks a bunch of stuff. Crap. Well, that broke something else. Wait, what did that break? Instance target, instance data. Instance target is item instance. Oh, because this example is just directly writing into an item, not into the library. In that case, we need to redesign this. So item library, player inventory, item ID, instance target. We do not need that anymore. We just need the first half of this here, and we'll rename this demo add item, because we just don't need that demo anymore. Well, thank you. Okay, what do we... All right. Demo, add item, add item. There we go. Alright, world item pool, says all the stuff in it, perfect. Inventories, player inventory, let's just clear these. This should be grabbed at some point, so let's hit him with that // to do. Pull these data from the world library. Nope, the world item pool. Alright, item instance proxy, you get renamed to item instance, and your child gets renamed to instance data. And let's go and make all the assignments. Sliders, collider, capsule collider, VRC pickup. There we go. Okay, these are all like behind me right now, so you can't really see them. But in the components here, I assign all of these in the inspector instead of doing that through just get component during start, because the plan is for there to be a lot of these in your scene, and doing 5 get components at the start all the time for all of these will dramatically increase the amount of time it takes to load into the instance, which I don't want people to have to do. Alright. Item instance, prefab, yep, instance. You got that. So he's just ominously floating here. It's fine. Item library, yep, these all look good. Demo player inventory. How does this grab that? Or was I manually assigning that? I might have just been manually assigning that in the scene. Yeah, okay. These earlier test buttons are basically going to be not useful at all for me right now. Those component references are so you don't disable the game object, right? No, actually. So the majority of the components here that I'm referencing for this item instance are primarily for colliders, actually. There's a few others here, but all of these colliders, the box, sphere, and capsule colliders, are because I want to give the person who's making the actual props that they're loading the ability to choose what collider goes on there without having to like place one and stuff. So like if we click over here, you can have a mesh collider or box collider or whatever you want on the actual prop, but this, the preview you see here, is the actual shape that it's going to take for the process of picking up an object. So if you want to actually interact with this thing, you have to grab it here. The reason I'm doing that is because you can't use child game objects for a interact, at least not very well. Especially if they're instantiated, VRC just doesn't use them when you try to click on something. So if you want to actually be able to interact with these props after you instantiate them, we need to fake the pickup collider by just putting it in the spot that you expect it to be. That's the majority of what these are. The actual instance itself, yes, will be disabled when it is inactive. The idea there is just there's going to be a ton of these, and they all are going to have there we go, a VRC object sync component. Which honestly, I think I can check force kinematic on remote and just be fine. Fewer physics going on, probably for the better. It already acts like it's kinematic, so you shouldn't really rely on it being non-kinematic. So, now that we have that, this is our library of objects. I want player inventories. Here we go. Player inventory. Alright, so this is where we need to actually start pulling this stuff. So let's get a... let's just remove that note. I have a visualize field for a... looking for a world item pool. Just call this world pool. I think it's fine to assign that in the inspector for now. I want that to be assigned automatically later, but I'll fiddle with that in a bit. But for right now, we just want to get stuff loaded in. Excuse me. So on start, if oh, since this is a player object, we can just cache the owner of it here. So let's see, VRC player API owner and local. Start local equals networking local player, and owner equals networking get owner game object. So now, if the local player is the owner of this object, we want to start checking to make sure, checking for when the pool has been properly assigned to them. So let's have a private bool assigned, and we'll start up a loop for that. So public void check for pool assignment loop. World pool equals, no, I want this to be pool assigned equals world pool dot has assigned pool. if pool assigned is false, send custom events delayed seconds, name of, check, and a 1. So every 1 second we will check to see if it's been properly assigned, and this might take like 2 seconds max, but it will almost certainly be functionally instant. You probably won't even have the like black fade in as you load into a scene. That probably won't even be done by the time that this properly gets assigned. It just needs like 1 second to run. All right. But we also only want to do this if this is the local player. So if owner.isLocal. There we go. Because we functionally don't want 90% of this code to be running if you're not the owner of it. On deserialization for the active items. Right, so this item instance pool. We're doing item instances. Oops. It's just called items apparently. Items I dot. So I don't actually want to rebuild item, I just did that to look into it easier. So instance data dot load data. We'll have a public void set active. Welcome. How is it going? Dropping the value there. So hit value. Rebuild item. Oh, game object set active. True. Else. Game object set active. False. And clear item data. Actually, wait. Clear item data shouldn't. Actually. Let's see here. If you're actually toggling this on and off, that's basically going to go in tandem with its loaded data. So, in order for this data to be properly loaded, oh crap. Okay. So I guess the item instance data needs a synced string on it for the ID of the thing that you're loading. Since the IDs, the way I'm handling them, are GUIs or GUIDs, and so that you don't actually have to rely on maintaining a consistent order of your array. Yeah, that's probably fine. Alright, let's go ahead and do that. So item instance data will have we'll do a public string item data ID. What's that actually called? So when we have item data item ID. Okay, so synced item ID will be get with a private set, and we'll give that field put on synced and the serialized field. But in order to do that, we're going to have to assign this from the library. So this will have to be done here, since this is the thing that actually stores the sync data for it. So wherever we're getting this data from originally, so load data comes in from here. Load item data was never being called yet, so we gotta. Yeah, okay, so let's give this a serialized field, a private library. How do I want to assign the library on this? Because right now we're instantiating a prefab that is okay. Yeah, I'll just manually set it. Okay, so when item instance data is assigned, okay, yeah, so let's do pre-warmed prefab maybe. Where I just like set the variables on the prefab and then assign it. That would work if I added in the scene. I guess I could also assign the values to the prefab. That would be a little bit weird because when you leave play mode, it'll be like, oh yeah, all these things are just like missing references on it because they're not real. I think it's probably fine to assign it during the build process. So let's have this be field, serialized field, and this is a public one with a get and a private set. Instance data, so that way we can access instance data library. That should work. Okay, so where is the item pool? There we go. Oh, the item library has a helper with some stuff that it does, so we need this to be running after that. Actually, no, we don't care. That's just for object reference. So let's do. These aren't proxies anymore, so I don't have to call them that. I put prefabs under disabled game objects, so once I instantiate them, they're already self-enabled. Well, a lot of the prefabs that I have set up for this aren't really going to be in the scene. They're going to be in the Unity project. So I guess you could have them disabled, though a lot of what I'm doing here is just to like people don't run into issues. Like, oh, how do I word this? I don't want to have a part of my instructions that say make sure to disable all of your prefabs when you save them. Because that will just be like this thing that people trip over and then show up in my Discord server asking questions about. So the more of this that I can automate, the better. This isn't proxy anymore. This is a instance. So dot library equals library. I guess we have to assert that this is real. So if that there. Because otherwise we'll crash out of the build. Saved. Alright, so we go to our library. That is all those things. Inventories. World pool. World pool doesn't need anything changed on it. Alright, so let's step through this and see where we work next. On player join, pool assignments, bunk, bunk. Has assigned pool. Yep, okay. We can close that. So player inventory. Let's say I want to instantiate an item. Let's look at demo spawn item. This first adds an item into your inventory and then spawns it. Excuse me. Add item. Takes the item data. Okay, so spawning an item should be let's oops. How do I comment that? There we go. Yeah, so this will have to be finagled a bit. Spawn item. If the item is stackable, it's in the stacked items. If it's not, it's in the unique items. Okay, so we need to tell the instance data to load data from it, but that's going to be well, that depends. How do we want to sync the data on that? Because the instance data itself is what's currently holding that data. But that doesn't... I feel like we have a lot of places where there is synced data that we're bouncing around right now. Because we have the pool of things, so world item pool. This has synced for whether or not it's assigned. There's data, not instance data. We have the item instance data, which has a synced ID of what is actually on it. And the player inventory has a synced array of bools of which ones are active. Okay. So let me work through this in my head. We have, when you want to spawn an item, you need to have the data for it in your inventory. Once that's validated, the object needs to be told to be able to instantiate something. But it needs to be told to instantiate something in a way that all observing viewers can have instantiate. In that case, the synced data for that has to be... Yeah, that has to be on the instance data itself, or the spawned one. I kind of wish there was a better way of handling the thing that I'm describing. I guess we could swap the hierarchy of how we're handling things right now. That might actually make... Yeah, that might make the most sense. So right now what we've done is we have a... ignore all the errors. We have the actual pickup controlling all the sync data and all that kind of stuff. And the parent and the child of it is storing the synced data that just needs to be manual synced. I think inverting that, where the parent is the manual sync and the child is the object sync, is the better approach. So that way we can store the loaded ID here on this data and not have to have a separate array for how well that works. Yeah, okay. So let's go ahead and shuffle that around. So actually be a little bit annoying, but let's see. Fab unpack. So this will be called item instance. This will be instance pickup. That's basically all it's going to be. So we get to go and rename all these things again. This also gets rid of our circular dependency of the item instance knowing about the item instance data and the item instance data knowing about the item instance. Alright, let's go fix all those names. Item instance pickup. This is item instance. I think that also more properly describes what their roles are. So yeah, in this case, the item instance pickup has no need to know about the instance data itself. It just needs to be told to load an item with some data. And then, if there's no loaded data, we'll do GameObject.set active false. Otherwise, we'll do GameObject.set active true. Clear item data, which just calls null. Load item, just change that to clear item. All right, item instance. This is the thing that knows about the pickup. So we pick up. So this here, the item instance is telling the pickup to load a thing. I think that's correct. I think the pickup object should be the thing maintaining the visuals on it, because that's completely separate from any synced data. So all the syncing for it happens on here. So when we take this ID, we grab it from the library and we shove it into the pickup here. So we grab the line from here. It's just library get data. Synced item ID. Toss item in there. Oh, I should do a contains check for that. If item dictionary contains ID wait. Oh, try get value ID the dictionary out value. Otherwise return null. And yeah, that can be a try get value. That does this. Yeah, that works. Perfect. All right, so this no longer, okay, we do need this load data method. That's where we assign it from random things. Item rebuild. We want. What is items? Items is the pickup array. We don't actually want that. Yeah, so we don't actually care about this items active array here anymore either. So we can drop that. We can drop the serialization and shove this onto none sync. Perfect. That's what we were after. When we're looking at items active, we're actually going to be looking at how do we want to grab that? Okay, actually, items active will be a local array. It will not be synced. So public pool array items active. This actually doesn't even need to be public. A lot of things don't need. A lot of these things don't need to be public, actually. All right. Pickup. We don't care about that being pickup. We want item instance. Then from there, take that. Alright. The value of this has greater than 1. Remove the item. Alright, so here, items active, index true. Grab that item. We load that data on it. And then we cache in the instance data there. We do basically the same thing over here. Actually, yeah. Let's go ahead and put that here. we'll just do build data at index item data. Do it here as well. So that be true. Okay. And this is updated but never used. What was item instances? Oh, this is the array of item instance data. So when we're loading in the item data, we're getting that from the library here on the item instance. There used to be pickups anymore. These are the item instances. That has a library. Okay. Okay, which now means that we need to fix our descriptor? Is that right? Let's find our item descriptor. There it is. Pick up item drop. No, these are fine. Okay. I think that's all of the things that had references to the older system. Alright, we're now getting to the part where it's going to be a little bit more difficult to test some of these things because we don't actually have a visual for this inventory system. So let's go and make sure that this still works. So we don't actually care about interfacing with the library at all, I think. Actually, no, we do for this. Because in order to set stuff, we need the actual data, not just the ID. I guess I could set ID versions for that. The library is one of those things that I'll probably have to actually set up a essentially a singleton for it. Alright, let's fiddle with this. Once you figure this out. Clear errors. We good. Right. Alright. We go back in here. Fix that. Alright, none of these buttons' IDs are remotely right anymore, so that's a spawn item. Add item. Let's just start with the spawn item one. Okay. The world item pool does not have this reference anymore, so it didn't actually instantiate anything. Alright, play. This also isn't going to work because we don't actually have an array assigned yet. I just want to see if we get any errors anywhere. No errors. Okay. In that case, player inventory, we have our items thing up here. But let's see what else. Alright, so once we got this pool assigned, let's go ahead and grab it from world pool. So let's do a public item instance array get pool for no, just get local pool. So if has assigned pool, return actually wait, we can just combine that here. So that's the index for pool assignment ID. So we need a int for a pool ID equal pool assignment ID's index, and then we use that to return instance pools pool ID. Okay. Assignment ID. Okay, there we go. Otherwise, we return null. Okay. So once pool is assigned, we do items to equal world pool dot get local pool, and items active equals new of items. Alright, player inventory. Bang. This needs to talk to player inventory 1. Player inventory 1 has items, but it doesn't. Wait, no. It doesn't have items, but it does have items active. Is that wrong? Public variables, items. Okay, yeah, that's just not updating in the Udon Sharp field. Okay, cool. Okay, so we can go over here. Click it and nothing happens. Okay, we are setting those to be active, but we're not getting a thing to happen yet. So let's step through it. When we here, let's just go ahead, close everything. Spawn item. So we want to add an item to the inventory. We do that if the item is stackable. This is a dictionary, so that is an index. Okay, yeah. So this is a data dictionary of integers. Otherwise, it's appended into here. What's the one I'm testing? Warhammer. Are you stackable? No, it is not stackable. So we're treating it as a unique item in this situation. So when we want to spawn an item, which we do immediately afterwards, we'll check unique items. If it contains that, we remove it. We find index for it, and we fill that data, which is correct. Instance data, load data. Okay, so that should be right. Loaded data, that's true. Oh, we no longer need to be setting the stuff to be inactive during the build process. We're going to do that from build item pool. There we go. Because we're never getting that deserialization because the object is off. But now I can take that, go back into Unity once it lets me. I can go into item instance and I can disable the prefab, or the pickup by default. So instance pickup, bang. Save. Well, did that do anything? Okay, so that's still, oh right, because right now it is talking to that, not the real one. Still hasn't done anything. So let's click on player inventory, edit public variables, items active. Items active is still set to 0 here. Wait, no, it's set to 1. Okay, why is items active set to 1? That should be right. It should be set to the same number. Items active equals items.length, which happens only once that's valid. Actually, there's a few weird assignments things there. So it assigned me the first one instead of the 0th one. So how is pool assignment done? One player joined. We check for index of 0. That shouldn't have gone to 1. Will it have the exact same behavior again? I'll move some stuff around so my head isn't covering basically everything I'm interacting with right now. Alright, pool assignment IDs. This is a full 20. We have player ID 1 in pool assignment IDs slot 0. Perfect. Now, if we go to demo load item 3, we need to give it the actual inventory for the player. Now if we look at this, both of these are empty. If we look at it here, we get it correctly assigned here from the player, but it's not giving us the one that I feel like we want. Am I doing this one? Okay, so pull assignment IDs. This ID is assigned the player ID. So we're finding the array inside of that. Okay, yep. No, I was doing that wrong. I was essentially just getting the player's ID and then grabbing that out of it. Which the player ID would have been 1, which was why they were giving me the first one instead of the 0th one. Doesn't explain why one of the arrays only had one value in it, though. I'm curious what's going on there. Alright. Items, correct. Item library, item instance, player inventory. Items show 0, that's not right. Okay, both these are reporting 10. Good, good. But if I look at world item pool, look at instance arrays. First one has 10, second one has 10, third is 10. Okay, yeah, these all have 10. So I'm not sure what was tripping up last time. Alright, so this needs to talk to the real player inventory. Has the real ID from that. Alright, so if we look at the player's inventory, we have attempted to spawn 4 things. Which makes me curious why that hasn't happened. Alright, let's start checking through our setup for where we return out of things. We know that it is assigned. We know that it has... well, actually... Okay, so these never get assignation, but it is happening in player inventory here. So when we spawn an item, we build data, which needs to be renamed to something else. To do rename this to something more relevant. Sets active true, grabs the item, let's load data from that. Pick up the data, debug log, item data, attempted to load null item data. Else, debug log, successfully loaded data. It's a little preemptive to say that, but we're at least in the spot where it's going to properly run. so I can just verify that I'm loading the right one. Yep, yeah, that's right. We'll be calling it here pretty shortly, mostly because we're hitting around my dinner time, and I'm very much looking forward to some real food today. Wow, we are not even getting to that log. Okay. Curious, actually. Oh, it says items active 1 again. Wait. It said items active 1 only after I started observing this field, at which point we got the null item array. Oh, is there a serialization issue happening? Am I getting bamboozled here? Seeing as it didn't do anything until I observed the inspector under that drop-down is not a great sign, I'll be honest. Yeah, those all broke because they're just not hooked up right. Okay. Curious. Alright, well there's a lot to dig around here, and hopefully I'm not destroyed by a serialization issue. But, alas, we will figure it out next time. Let me just swap me over here. Alright. Well, we also got a lot done. Unfortunately, it was a lot of thinking done, while we mostly just stared at a bunch of white cubes and text. But sometimes it looks like that. That's for today. Yeah, thank you. Hopefully, y'all are being somewhat productive off in your worlds as well. And while I feel pretty productive, I wish there was a bit more that I could like post screenshots of after the stream, but oh well. Looking forward to kicking back up on this next week, and we'll be seeing you all around then as well. Take care, and bye-bye.